Today we're going to show you how to paint on your printed canvas photographs and turn them into mixed media art. Hey everybody, Lindsay Adler here, and this is my good friend Jen, who's also an extremely talented artist. And so the reason that I have her here today in my studio is because as we are good friends, I was over at her apartment and I walked in and she had these paintings on her walls that were like kind of paintings and then kind of photos, and I was like, how did you do this? All that art stuff is beyond me, and so I am asking her to please teach me your ways. So tell me.
Well, I was a photographer for a very long time, but I started out in the fine arts. My degree was in fine art and art history, so I've done all the things like painting and sculptures and pottery and all the things. I'm very much an art kid. And then I transitioned into photography and had a photography studio for forever. A 20-some year, we're not gonna age myself too much, but a 20-some year career as a portrait photographer. And then several years ago, I moved to New York and I'm creative director of a lab. And so now I kind of have gone back to my fine art roots, and I do a lot of painting as a hobby and to pass the time now. So I will do some freehand paintings, but a lot of times what I do is what we're gonna talk about today. And that is, I will print a canvas of one of my favorite images, whether it's a Instagram image, just a phone image, and I'll print that large on canvas, and then I'll do painting with acrylic paints over top of that. We're gonna talk about all the brush strokes, all the tools, everything you need to know. But it's kind of cool because you can use any sort of image, and even if it's like a bad phone image, you can use any sort of photograph, and it doesn't have to be a good photo. It can kind of be even like pixelated and kind of crappy, but you can use it as a reference to paint on top of. So we're gonna take my crappy iPhone image and I'm gonna paint one of mine, and we're gonna take one of her beautiful, gorgeous fashion images and she's gonna paint one of hers.
So to give you perspective of this, okay, so the reason I was so impressed is because the paintings had all this texture and life to it. And in high school, I like missed the whole art thing. So I was a tech nerd, so I took all the technology classes. And so I literally have never painted. Like, I don't know any of the differences between any of these paintbrushes, any of this paint. So like, I need to start at like 0. Yeah. So
I can't tell you how excited I am to teach you something for once. Like you being like without knowledge and me being like, oh, I have the knowledge. Let's teach you these things. So it's very exciting for me.
It's gonna put you to the test.
I know.
Perfect.
Anyway, okay. So to get started, you can paint with a lot of different mediums. You can do oil painting. You can do watercolor painting. You can do, a lot of different, there's encaustic, there's all of these different things that you can play around with. For our purposes today, and the medium that I choose to paint with most often, I go with acrylic paints. They are water soluble. They're just really easy to work with, and they dry a lot quicker than if you wanted to do oil paints. They're also a little bit less toxic. Like if you're doing oil paints, you have to work with linseed oil and paint thinners, and we don't want to do any of that. We're gonna keep it simple. So acrylic paints are kind of the easiest way to get in this.
And they're cheaper-ish too, right?
I believe so. Anything that we're gonna show you today, you can easily get at any art supply store. We got everything off of Amazon. And so I'm just gonna go through a couple of different tools that we have here. We're gonna talk the paints first. We're gonna be using just Arteza, I think I'm saying that right, Arteza acrylic paints, and we have like all of the colors laid out here, and we have a bunch of iridescents. So we have some that have like some pearlized stuff and things like that. And you can really play around. Really, kind of all of the brands are pretty much created equal. I'm sure people have favorites, but for our purposes, this came in a big set and it was just really easy to get started. But the first time we got the wrong paint, and we got the pourable paint. You'll see now a lot of people are doing, it's a new thing, doing pouring paint, where they paint, they pour it and it spreads out and it fills the canvas. Totally. It's just like a different thing. But those acrylic paints are very thin. So you're not gonna get the same texture. You're not gonna be able to build it up if you don't get like the regular, normal
So
acrylic.
they just don't say pourable.
Correct. Don't get the pourable ones unless that's what you're into and that's what you want to do. Okay. Now, if you know that you want to do a brush stroke, and we're going to talk about the different brush strokes, but if you know that you want to do one that's like going to be drippy and really thin and that's how you want to work, you could get the pourables. But you can also take these and just dilute them with water to get that same effect, which we're going to do. The other thing that you're going to want to get is this Liquitex medium. This is the pouring medium. This comes in different substance thickness as well. We got the pouring one, and just to give it a little bit more dilution. Basically what this does is you can add this to your pigment, to your paint, and it will kind of extend the life of the paint. Like it'll make it a little more watered down, and you'll need less paint, and it'll take it and let it go further.
And it doesn't change like the saturation of it or anything?
It doesn't change the saturation, it just changes the elasticity of it. It you put a little bit of pigment and a little bit of this, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to build up a texture. If you want to build and get thick paint, you're going to want to do less of this or none of this. And if you want it to dilute and go further, you do a little bit more of this. This can also be mixed with water.
Okay.
So it's all water soluble. That also means that these clean up fairly easy as well. If you happen to like drip it on the floor or get it on, most of the time you can clean it up with soap and water, because they're all water soluble. We have a variety of brushes, everything from, if you're working on a huge canvas, you can use all the way to a big, huge paintbrush. We're probably not going to be using this today. All the way to, a little bit smaller. We have fan brushes. I know, I think you're gonna like this, a little fan brush. We have this set of brushes that are kind of small. These are for more if you're going for realistic detail, that sort of thing. I don't think we'll probably use a lot of that today because I like to do things that are a little bit more impressionistic. My feeling is that if I'm painting it, I don't need it to be how it looked. I want it to be how it felt. So, if I wanted it to be how this image looked, I would just simply print the photograph. So I want it to be the thickness, the feeling, the light. I want it to be impressionistic and a little bit more abstract. So I'm probably gonna go a little bit bigger brush strokes and a little bit more gestural rather than, fine detail with the small brushes.
Yeah, so the reason that this appeals to me and part of my motivation is I do not have a skill set with painting. So what I was leaning towards is like texture and like messy on purpose, because I feel like then even if I mess up, it won't look like I mess up, maybe.
Well, and I think also for your work, what you're looking to do, correct me if I'm wrong, is really take the impact of the image and give it a little bit more power, a little bit more blam, a little bit more impact.
Well, and I'm also thinking too is I like to think of my pieces as art, and then I make it a one-of-a-kind piece of art.
Absolutely.
So I thought that would be a cool little addition.
Absolutely. So we also have these little guys are palette knives. And we have a set that could give us some different textures if we wanted to. This is really great for very impressionistic things where you're just really laying on the thickness. So we're gonna play with that a little bit as well. But the great thing about doing this is I know you're a little bit nervous.
I'm not, this is not what I do.
But the great thing about this is that it doesn't matter. You're just, I find this to be really relaxing and kind of a great outlet and a great hobby, and you can't do it wrong because there's no such thing as doing right or wrong. in terms of art. It is just like, do you love it? If it turns into a product line for clients, great. You can do one-of-a-kind art pieces, but if not, it's just a creative outlet. It doesn't have to be anything, so there's no rules per se. I mean, there's probably a lot of people that are gonna be like, there are definitely art rules, which, whatever. There's probably a way to do things, you know, there's the old master's way, but art is about pushing limits, and art is about getting in your right brain and taking time to do something creative and out of the box, and that's the whole purpose of doing it. So don't be nervous, you can't do it wrong.
I'm super nervous, and like, I don't know if anyone actually knows my body language. You can tell by the way I'm like moving,
Yeah.
but
All good.
this doesn't matter. I'm ready. I'm so ready, and I feel like adding more art can only benefit me. So I'm ready.
Great, let's get started.
Okay.
What we're gonna do first is we're gonna mix some paint, do a few different consistencies. So we're gonna do just paint, and then we're gonna do paint mixed with a little bit of medium, so you can see what that does. And then we're gonna do paint mixed with water to water it down and dilute it. And we're gonna let you play and try some different brush strokes so you can get a feeling of what it feels to do the different brush strokes. And we're gonna just do that on a blank canvas. This is just so that you can get your hands dirty and get into it and understand how the different consistencies of paint work with the different brushes and the different mediums. And we're not afraid because this means nothing. Okay, so we're just gonna start with a blue so we can see that really well. Again, this is not even a thing. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of paint in one of these little palette sections. Crazy cheap, you can get a packet of like 6 of them for not much on Amazon. And it just gives you little sections so you can mix colors together. You also don't need all of this stuff. You can also do this on a piece of cardboard, who cares? Cool. So we're just gonna put actually I'm gonna do a couple of different sections so that we can mix and keep them separated. Okay. We'll do this. Then what I'm gonna do is we'll take this middle one and add a little bit of this pouring medium just right in with the paint. Now start with a little bit, and then if you want to water it down even more, you can. And this could get interesting. I'm gonna put just a little bit of a lot of water. Can you? Cool. Yeah. Okay. Then I'm gonna take one of the palette knives that we have. We don't really need to mix up the regular paint because that's just regular paint. It is how it is. And then we're gonna mix in the medium, and you can see how it's added body, but it's a little bit more smooth.
The color looks the same.
Yep. Won't mess with the pigment at all. It's just gonna give it a little bit more fluidity and let you use less paint and go further. And this will be a little thicker, this will be somewhere in the middle. And then this, you can see how it mixes right in with all of the water and creates almost like a gouache. I'm using artsy words.
Oh, I didn't know that was a word.
A gouache is a opaque watercolor. So however, you can almost make watercolors with it by doing, you know, just more water. You can put it in little glass dishes if you want. And you can see like that is really, really super thin.
This feels like oddly satisfying though.
Right? We should do a whole video of just like paint mixing. Actually, that's a total thing.
No, I know. I've seen it. That's why I'm like looking. It's like, oh, it's very pleasing.
Yes, it's very satisfying to sit here and mix paint. Okay, so you can kind of see we have 3 different consistencies. We may even water this one down even further to get a little bit more of a watercolor situation. Actually, I'm gonna do that right now. I'm just gonna take a brush. Yeah, we live and learn. And then I'm gonna take a brush that's gonna allow me to actually squeeze the water out. There we go. And if you have a big canvas and you know you're gonna be using a lot of paint, get a bigger palette, or, you know, use a piece of cardboard or something so that you can really mix all your paints. It's just like anything else. You don't want to get started and need one color and then not have enough paint mixed. So now we have a bunch of different consistencies that we can play with. Now we're gonna grab a brush. Can't get it wrong, can't get it wrong. Pick a brush, any brush. Sure. Okay.
clean.
Okay. So now what we're gonna do is I want you just to dip the brush in the paint,
The
and we'll start.
regular one
Yep.
first?
We'll start with the actual.
How much?
Doesn't really matter. We're just gonna play with different thicknesses. So with this, I just want you to get a feel of how it feels to put paint and brush on canvas. You're fine.
scared.
Can't get it wrong.
Okay. So am I going far, just close, or?
Doesn't matter. It's just about the feel. It's
Okay.
just about
Ready?
getting used to actually painting.
Here we go.
Awesome. So what you can see with this brush stroke is when you have thick paint, you're gonna have the canvas coming through because it doesn't have any liquid to soak in.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more, this is called dry brush. And the less paint you have on the brush, the more the
pretty.
canvas is gonna show through.
I like that.
Yeah.
This is prettier to me.
Yes. So it's just a different technique. And then this is also what I want you to do is take the actual paint and I want you to, actually I'm gonna switch this. I'm gonna have you just grab that little palette brush there. And I want you to dip into a bunch of the paint.
Like a lot?
Yep,
With that.
yep.
Okay.
And then what I want you to do is I want you just to apply that
How?
just like that. Yeah, great. And I want you to just, yeah, see how that builds up
Oh, cool.
and creates a texture, and you can give it little, almost like meringue points.
Okay, this is kind of what I saw in some of your photos that I liked too.
The thickness.
Yeah, like the, yeah. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like this looks boring to me. That looks awesome. That looks awesome.
Yep, and I like to do this thickness. I like paintings that you can like run your hand over and you can feel it. When you're looking at it at the wall, it almost creates the depth of like the buildings and things like that. So I do really like to build up texture with thicker paint. Now I'm gonna have you, we're gonna do everything in the same brush so that you can feel the different consistencies. Now I'm gonna have you take the medium one.
Okay.
Right here. And that's not gonna be a lot different.
Is that okay?
Yep.
And do another stroke down
Sure.
like I did?
Yep. Just again, just feeling how that consistency. You see it's soaking in just a
thicker,
little
yeah.
bit more. It's actually not thicker, it's just going further. When we started this was
yeah.
just paint, and so it got to be the dry brush very quickly. Giving it a little bit of that medium takes it a little further of how much paint will cover
Okay.
the
cool.
canvas. Okay, now we're gonna go a little bit more watered down.
Okay,
This
so
was,
this was a lot of paint in a little water.
yes.
Okay.
Now, these will start to drip, so we already have a drop cloth down, so it's fine. But you see how that's really thin.
Okay.
And then,
Pretty color.
I'm actually gonna wash this out a little bit because I'm gonna take some of the paint out of your brush, and I want you to try the one that we have really watered down, and I want you to see how that is going to soak into the canvas and drip quite a bit.
Okay. We're good.
We're good.
you
Go
go.
ahead.
Oh, look, that's
Yeah, it's a whole different feel. So this one is mostly water with just a little bit of pigment. So we've basically made, we've made almost a watercolor. But what we can do is we can create these sorts of things where, you know, we're really just, see, I told you,
that's cool.
it's gonna
Splash
drip.
zone.
But we can create all this like abstract, you know, brush strokes kind of thing. And then what you can do is you can even just add water on top of that and dilute it even more
Oh,
and
cool.
get some very watercolor kind of things. Now, drying time, these are all gonna dry faster than if you did an oil paint because they're water-based. So once the water evaporates, they will start to dry. This obviously has more water, so it's gonna dry a lot faster.
Okay.
And this is gonna dry much slower because it's mostly paint. So the thicker your paint is, the slower it's gonna dry. So if you want to build up layer and layer and texture, it may take you some time.
That makes sense.
Now you can also, this watercolor one, to build up pigment, you know, I added water to get kind of that dripping kind of situation, but you can also come back in and add pigment to sections, you know,
fun.
and create all sorts of, you know, whatever.
Emotion.
There's no right way, there's no wrong way.
I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the ocean.
Yeah, so, and you can use a combination of all these brush strokes. You know, this is the thicker just paint. This is the watered paint. We can water it down. We can just add more water and let that just, you know, all sorts of different things that we could do.
If I can figure out how to do this, I feel like it'd be pretty over the whole thing.
Great, we're gonna make you do that.
No, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, there is no figuring out to do it if you don't put a brush on the canvas and try. Here you go.
Okay, wait. So that was kind of this stuff though, right?
Right, but there's not much here anymore. So I would,
Or I could add more water to this one.
you could add more water, or what you also can do, I'm gonna hold this over here so we're not dripping across the floor. What you can do is you can try this. Start with putting some of this water. Now it's got some pigment in because we've washed the brush a few times, but just put some water up here on the canvas.
And you aren't painting, you're like squishing, right?
I'm just kind of brushing across. But you can squish. I want you to try everything so you can feel.
Because you like over here, you were like, ooh.
Yeah, if you squeeze the brush, you're gonna get the drips.
Okay.
Just do water. Don't even put it.
water.
Yep.
Okay, ready?
Because we have blue water. So just do some water, and I want you to put water over this whole top area. Yeah, and you can actually go pretty light too.
Light, like.
Yeah.
like-
Yep, you don't have to squeeze the brush into the canvas at all to just lay water in. You see what that's doing? It's just laying on the water. Then what I want you to do is just take some of the painted pigment and just start at the top and start just putting some of
The
that.
thicker, the medium.
Just go with the thick. We have more paint there. Just go up here and just start brushing onto those watered areas and see what it does. See how you can build up some of the different textures? Cool. And then get in there with the brush like you mean it.
Like, what
Mess
does
it
that
up.
mean?
There you
Do I
go.
do mixing or do I just do what
Just
I do?
do water. This is just to get a feel for it.
Well, that's cool.
You see how it's pulling the pigment, and then in places where there's more water, it'll drip and become lighter.
Yeah, because I like your lighter. Okay, I'm gonna go lighter.
So if you want to go even lighter, go
Yeah.
over in this area that doesn't have a lot of pigment.
Oh, I know I'm making a mess.
It doesn't matter.
Do more. I'm doing more.
Great.
Okay.
See, there's no wrong way. You're just painting it on.
Okay. All right.
Now give it some thickness in here. Just play with the different textures of paints.
Oh, that was like really liquidy.
Yeah.
I liked that better.
Yeah, and then see how it feels when you go across it, when you go different directions, and what that does. This is just to get used to the act of painting.
Rather than making an art piece. Okay, I feel that makes me feel better.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use that fan brush because I think you're gonna be a big fan of the fan. Hey, okay. I know. I'm gonna get a little bit more paint for you. So dry brushing.
Could you take the paint that's already there? What,
Yep,
or would
let's
mess
just
it
do
up?
that. Yeah, go ahead. Play with it. Try it out.
Like, is that what it is?
Yep. Now, if you're trying to create, let me just
Yeah,
illustrate
please,
for you.
please.
So this is a fan brush because it's fanned out. So what it's going to do is create like little trails of paint.
Okay.
So you kind of want to use this brush swiftly
Okay.
and with like a flick of the wrist, right?
Okay.
So like, see what that's going to do?
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah. So this is really good for hair.
Oh, I like it better
It's-
than just down because I
Yeah.
feel like it makes this have motion.
Yeah.
And this just looks like a. Okay.
All sorts of fun things. But try doing it very, very quickly and like flicking.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do this one.
Great. Do whatever you want. And then try in a place with some pigment here. Try, I like the flick, try going a little softer so you can feel what that, you see what that's doing?
Oh, cool. It kind of, it
Gives you a little bit more control.
Yeah.
Yep.
It like it's thick to fade. Ooh, okay. That I get. That was good. I see that.
This is gonna be your favorite.
Okay. I wanted to see what it looked like when I could, you know what I mean?
Great. Should we actually start painting on a real canvas?
I mean, yes, because I'm just as scared now, so I'm ready.
Perfect. All right, let's switch things out.
Okay, so we are set up and ready to create, but I wanted to let you all know that everything that we've talked about as an essential element of this is listed in a link in the description below. And then now we have up our canvases here. Both of our canvases are from Printique, which we also have a discount code in the description. Mine is a size 16 by 24 and yours is a
24 by 24.
24 by 24. I'm going to tell you why I picked my photo. You let me know what you're thinking about yours. My thought process was this. First of all, I think going and playing around with colors is a whole nother layer I'm not ready for yet. So sticking to something that was clean, graphic black and white, I could play on the shapes. I could add texture, for example, in her shirt, like there's no texture there at all. So maybe paint texture could be interesting. Also, even like her hair looks like wisps almost of a brush, so I thought that would be cool. And the original crop of this is much tighter. It's just to the sides of the headpiece and then it crops off at the bottom. But I added more white space so that I had room to paint outwards and have a little more like literal blank canvas to play with.
Mine, as you can see, is a horrible, horrible iPhone picture. But really, what it is to me, it's New York on a cloudy, drizzly, gray day, and it's how that feels to be here on that kind of day. So my image was a old image from probably 6 years ago on an older iPhone. So it was a tiny little Instagram picture that I blew up to 20 by 24 because I don't care about the details. It's actually almost easier for me to paint this way without the details because I'm just looking for areas of color, areas of shape, and it's going to be very impressionistic, like I said before. So this is just to show that even if you've taken something, you know, off a crappy phone that you just fell in love with the ambiance of what it is, you can still turn it into art even though it's not a great image. So this is what I do all the time.
Cool. I saw this one artist, there's a couple of people, one that would, I don't know if you've ever seen his work, but he has these really detailed paintings where the face and the body's real, or sorry, the torso and the head is real, and then he just layers paint on the face. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I love the texture. Also, there's some other guy that I'd seen that he'd do the sort of black and white stuff, and then he'd have drips. But I think he's a digital artist. I don't think it's done in real life.
There's something really interesting about this whole concept of mixed media, of the digital canvas and then the physical paint on top of it. That's kind of cool. It's just kind of like a mixed media feel. So,
well, I hope it turns out for me.
Be awesome. Okay, great. So we're just gonna mix up some paint colors. You have a black and white image, so you are gonna stick with black. I'm gonna kind of pull this palette in, which is pretty neutral, some browns, some grays. I'm gonna start with the sky and just kind of start layering that up, and then I'm gonna get real thick with the buildings. Here we go.
I'm ready.
Do it.
Okay.
What I would suggest for you is why don't you start with just the thicker paint, maybe a little bit of medium, just so that your pigment goes further, and start laying in your textures. It's gonna be easier to start with a dry canvas so that you can build on top of the paint and get more textures. If you start with a wet canvas, the paint kind of disintegrates into that.
Okay. So this or this?
You don't even have to mix anything, so it's up to you. Either way.
All right, I'm ready. so we finished this one, and Jen is,
Still working.
yeah, making her masterpiece. Genuinely, it came out so much better than I expected, and
You did a great job.
I messed up a bunch, but like it looks like a purposeful mess, so it totally works for me, and I love it.
I think it's great. I think you did a great job. Your first painting ever.
Thanks, Guru.
You're so welcome. Anytime.
Awesome. So to kind of wrap this up, we put all of this information in the description, and I definitely thought it was scary. I still think it's scary, but even if you mess up, you can make it work, and if you mess it up, who cares?
You can't mess it up. There is no rules. There are no rules. There is no rules. It's perfect. You did a great job.
Thank you. So everybody, thanks so much for watching, and be sure to check out all the information in the links below, and of course, be sure to come back here because I have a lot more of these creative videos coming your way. See you next time, guys.
Thank you.